With a number of COVID-19 cases on the rise throughout the state of Texas, there have been more and more requests regarding the upcoming school year. While we still don't have all the answers, we'll be publishing episodes weekly to provide what information we do have and keep you updated on the 2021 school year. I'm Andrew Kim, Superintendent of Schools for the Comal Independent School District. Joining me today is our regular folks that always help me out. Executive Director for Communications, Steve Stanford. Executive Director for our School Safety and Health, Dr. Joe McKenna. So thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
First and foremost, Steve, we're about to launch the next few days after this podcast the information regarding what we call the final verification or the final choice or the final commitment, but we're calling it final verification, where parents are choosing for the upcoming school year, first grading period, a decision about keeping their kids home for remote learning or sending their kids for in-person or on-campus learning. And so can you talk us through the process on that and just see what parents are going to be getting here soon?
Absolutely. And, if you recall, about middle of January, we did the pre-committal.
That's right.
So we had about...
You mean June, I think.
You're right. No, it was June. Well, I think we started in June, went to June and July. So we had a few weeks of that. And so that was allowed us, parents an opportunity. We had over 17,000 students represented in that.
And that gave us a good indication about which way we might go.
Right. About 60% were choosing on campus versus 40% going towards remote learning. But as we said then, that was a non-binding commitment.
That's right.
But what we're doing now and starting later this week, we're going to be asking parents to go in and make that final verification. Whether you chose on campus or remote learning, this is your opportunity to go verify that that's still what you want. Or if you want to change your decision, that's the opportunity for you to do that as well.
Yeah. So, and there's actually some other decisions that have to be made once you choose remote or on campus, though. I mean, and we've been thinking a lot about that.
Right.
We want to be a one-stop shop decision making.
Right. So one of the things, like if you're going to choose on campus, one thing we want to know is, are you going to be providing your own transportation to school? Or are you going to be riding the bus?
Yeah.
And one thing we're going to probably talk about later when we talk about transportation more is that we're going to want to encourage people to bring their own kids to school.
Yeah, we definitely would encourage carpooling because our buses, we're going to have two to a seat. Obviously, requirement of a face covering. There'll be disinfected, of course, after every ride. But we may not have enough seats for every child when we go to that. So certainly parents who can provide ridership, this is what we want. So that's one of the things that if you're choosing on campus, we need to know.
Right.
Because we need to figure out whether or not we have to provide transportation or not.
Right. Now, if you're going to go with the remote learning, some of the things we want to know is, are you going to be participating in extracurricular activities? So we have some boxes for you to check off related to fine arts and athletics. The other thing we want to know is, are you going to need technology as part of this? And
as a remote
learner. So, and we're going to have some more information coming out about that. Our technology checkout program, we're going to start on August 12th, and we'll have a process for that we'll advertise and put out there on how families who need that technology can go about and getting that from the district. So those are a couple things that, as you go through that, you're not just checking on campus or remote learning, but you're answering a couple other questions.
Because it's not just one or the other, but there's so many other things to consider. So when you choose, just to recap, when you choose remote, I need to think about technology. I need to think about, do I need meals too, child nutrition? I also need to know whether or not, am I going to participate in extracurricular?
Right.
But if I go with on campus as a decision, then, hey, I need to think about, do I need bus transportation? So that's the main question there. So when parents get that here pretty soon, we're going to send that out this week.
And we're going to send out some instruction. I think a couple things to point out. One, this is going to be different method than we did the pre-committal. If you recall, the pre-committal, we sent an email survey and you clicked on a link and you were able to fill it out and tell us what you wanted as your choice. This time we're going to go through Skyward, which is our parent information system. So you're not going to get an email necessarily to a survey, but you'll be able to log into Skyward. And
so parents are going to get a direction then?
They'll get directions. We will send an email with directions with a link to Skyward for those parents who have registered already. They should already be familiar with Skyward and the tiles that are on there, and there'll be a tile for making your choice. I think one thing that I've heard out there a little bit is that you have to make your decision when you register. If you've already registered, you can go back in Skyward and make your choice, but they're really two separate processes. And so we'll explain that.
Yeah, so the registration to say I'm coming to school, I'm going to be enrolled in Comal ISD, the registration process is separate of the decision-making about choosing remote option or on-campus option.
That's right. That's right. And so if you're, say you're waiting for some, maybe your immunizations or some paperwork on your registration, you can go ahead and go in and make your choice. And we prefer, if you know which direction you want to go ahead and tell us now so we can, do the work.
Yeah, it's really important that, and really the deadline is going to be August 11th.
Right.
But we really need to know because we had to start creating schedules for students. Trying to work that out is a huge Herculean work. So we're going to need to have parents make some decisions one way or the other on that. Now, if a parent just doesn't make a decision, we're going to default them to?
We're going to default to in-person.
Yeah.
That's on-campus instruction. So
and the reason we're doing that is because we're going to run a schedule.
That's right.
So they could ultimately choose remote up until the day of the school year starts on August 25th, but we're going to default them to a on-campus student. Right.
That's right. And I think just to reiterate what you said at the beginning was when you make this decision for like remote, you're making for the 9-week grading period.
It's not, the first semester is not a pure 9 weeks. I want to just make sure that people understand that. The first week, I think, is 8-week, and then the second semester is 10 and 10.
So maybe we should just call it the grading period.
Yeah, I've been calling it a grading period. It's not a pure 9 weeks at all. But I do, been really advocating for people to choose remote learning. I think it's been fantastic that we have 40% of our parents choosing remote learning. That really helps us because that does decrease the number of kids physically in the building for us to be able to social distance quite a bit. And that's one of the key factors about, mitigating the spread of this virus, which is extremely unpredictable, right?
That's right.
And, I was looking at Spring Branch Middle School numbers, for example. They essentially could have somewhere around 300 kids to 250 kids on that building if the 60-40% were to hold true. I think, I hope that our parents really make that decision based upon what their child's needs are and what their family needs are. That's really what they need to make a decision on.
Right. And we know there's a lot of questions. We've been receiving probably hundreds and hundreds of questions over the last 2 weeks, and we've posted answers to many of the most frequently asked questions. And we know there's a lot of specific,
I think we're getting about 10 questions, but 500 ways.
Yeah. And so what we've tried to do is group those questions and, look at what the common themes are.
Sure.
And so we put those on our website, our Comal Parent Center website. So that's a place for parents to go and look and see, look at those FAQs. And again, we've I think hit the highlights of the topics that most are frequently asked about: remote learning, what's it going to look like, the technology, and so on and so forth. And we're going to continue to answer questions as this goes on. Yeah,
but once again, just the point is we really need parents to make that decision here about August 11th. Part of the ever-changing landscape, though, is this guidances from the state of Texas, or TEA, the Texas Education Agency. And Joe, there's been some going back and forth on this issue of the face covering and what constitutes a student from quarantine. Sure. As we have case management process going forward when school starts, certainly we don't have a Pollyanna attitude that things are going to be all great. In fact, we think that we're prepared for circumstances that could be serious, obviously. So talk through us on some of the greatest on that issue.
Yeah. So the as you mentioned, the mask and the close contact. So we get this guidance from the state, who essentially is getting it from CDC and other medical sources. So originally, when we got the state guidance, the close contact definition was within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes without a mask or face covering. And that's kind of what we had talked about previous to this. Late last week, we got additional guidance that changed that definition. It's now within 6 feet for a cumulative of 15 minutes, and the mask piece was kind of removed. The reasoning behind that is really a cloth face mask, everyone agrees, severely limits the likelihood of you being exposed and contracting the virus. But some of the medical professionals are a little uncertain on whether or not it's to the level of, say, something like an N95 mask.
Which is very hard to get.
Not only hard to get, but very particular. So the true N95 mask has to be fitted by someone who is trained to fit an N95 mask to each individual person.
Right.
So there's some debate now, both at the federal level and the state level, on, again, I will reiterate the use of a face covering. Everyone
Certainly,
agrees.
Yeah, greatly protects.
Greatly reduces.
Yeah.
The hair that we're splitting now is, does it make you a close contact or not?
So, so this definition then, I mean, so I'm kind of a little confused now. So what are we saying? Because I think we have a very strong belief that face covering is a minimal requirement that we ought to have. I mean, until a vaccine, right now, social distancing, hand washing is yes, but face covering is about the thing that really helps us have a school every day.
Yes, and I agree 100% that the wearing of the face covering will reduce actual spread of the virus. As of right now, though, what we get from the state is called our exclusion criteria. So who needs to be out of the building when, again, we have 3 categories that we look at. True positive cases, lab confirmed positive, someone who's experiencing symptoms that are consistent with the virus. And then the third one is exposure to a positive, right? And that's where this close contact definition comes in. So right now, if you're exposed to someone who's positive, regardless of if you're wearing a mask right now, the definition is that if you were within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, that you would be quarantined for 14 days.
All right. So that's, I mean, what we're going to have stopwatches, teachers carrying stopwatches, assistant principal carrying stopwatches, trying to figure out whether or not, that was 14 minutes and 32 seconds. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not going to be the
it's extremely difficult. And it's the same thing that public health office is dealing with in the community. It's a form of contact tracing. We're calling our case management process, but we're going to have to talk to folks, talk to teachers, administrators on the campus, and really get a sense of what was the interaction like between this student and other students, what groups were they a part of.
Yeah.
So we are going to have to track some of that.
Well, and I want to say that, I know you've done a lot of work on this, so I appreciate it very much. The case management process that we're employing, that certainly it's going to have at the campus level, district level, case managers that we're hiring right now, that's going to really help support this process. It's almost like our own internal contact tracing group, I guess, in some sense, but it's a case management process to make that work.
Yep.
In some sense, that process, I think, would be a good one for us.
I think we're lucky to get ahead of this process and develop it and implement it with strength and conditioning and SAC and other programs that we ran over the summer, so we could work out some of those. There's a lot of gray areas, right? Yeah. There are guidelines, but like anything, a guideline is a guideline, and within the guideline, there's certainly some gray areas, and we've been able to work through some of those and then develop an additional set of guidance for our principals to work through.
So social distance is not sometimes always able to achieve from a practical sense, but we think that what we can achieve, though, is a face covering, though.
100%.
And I think right now the debate and discussion that we've been going through is that, it is a needed article of clothing or article of thing that is going to be required that we need to have for all kids. Now, here's the thing, though. I know that it may not be where kids are wearing it literally all day long. I have a funny story, right? So my son, we went to Baskin Robbins, or Marlboro Slabs, I should say. But anyway, got him a little ice cream thing, and he was asking me, well, how do I eat this? I said, take your mask off. And so I think people are forgetting that, yes, we're not, obviously during lunchtime, they may not have it on. But even during maybe independent time, they're going to be probably not have it on. But if a teacher comes by, they can put it on so they can talk with them.
Yep.
If they're walking in the hallways, they're going to need to put it on.
Yeah.
We also have several students, special ed students and others who may not be able to put a face covering on. It may be a face shield in some sense. So we're going to have to work through those things. Sure. But regardless of the age, we do want parents to equip their kids with face coverings when they come to our buildings to have on-campus experience.
Yeah, and
now, if not, then they can go to remote learning.
And I think we always have to remember that the face covering is a huge, important piece, but we do have all these other mitigation strategies in place too, right? Distancing is one,
sanitizing,
hygiene, sanitizing, right? So you got to collectively look at those.
It's not one thing, it's all
not
of it.
exactly 100%. It is, you have to look at the collective set of mitigation strategies that we're putting in
I'm
place.
going to tell you what I worry about, guys, is what happens with kids during weekends, Labor Day weekend, what happens during Halloween weekends, various things. So if we're going to truly have a community bubble, then everybody has to do their part to be responsible to each other, right? I mean,
that's our ownership of wellness, right?
It is ownership of wellness. And I mean, it's one of those things where I don't want to dictate people's lifestyle, but I think for the time being, until we fight this thing, because we want to take it seriously, we're going to all have to do our part to make that work. And so, I'm going to ask a lot of high school kids to be really careful about where you hang out and all that good stuff. And if you do it, please have appropriate face coverings on, and so on and so on.
And I think the common goal that we're all working towards is a safe in-person option for those that want it. And this is the way that we're going to have to achieve that, is, like you said, even on the weekends, we're all going to have to.
Yeah, I know there's been criticism one way or the other on all this stuff, and I get it. I will tell you that ultimately, my goal will be to have school on a day-to-day basis as many days as possible for our kids. And then, of course, the next to that is, of course, providing a safe environment for our teachers, staff members, and kids. So the top 1 and 2 things right there. And, of course, the health and well-being of our teachers and our kids are, of course, now exceedingly important to us. In order to do that, we're going to have to follow these protocols. We're going to need to have face coverings. We're going to need to have good hygiene practices. So this is very important, I think. So 2 important things, can't, I think, say enough about it. We need to get parents, Steve, to make sure they select remote learning or on campus. And then certainly making sure that parents are understanding how important face covering is, regardless of the age of the child. And if you don't have one, we will provide you one. So, Steve, any last comments on the...
No, just maybe just be on the lookout for that email. We'll have a video link. So we will be able to, so people will kind of walk through that process of doing
video talk over
the verification. Yeah. So step-by-step instruction.
We are communicating by paper, by video, voiceovers, the podcast. We have communicated on multiple different ways. So
everything short of carrier pigeon.
We are trying to over-communicate right now as much as we can. Well, I appreciate it very much, guys. I know you guys got a whole bunch of other things to take care of, so I need to do as well. But you've been listening to Comal ISD Radio. Join us next time as we talk about case management perspective from our Board of Trustees on the launch of the 2021 school year.